Alrighty, howdy everybody. So today I am starting a series that is based off of traditional meads. What does traditional mean? So traditional meads, traditional in the air quotes, are meads that are literally just honey, water, and yeast. In my case, I am adding a little bit of nutrient because the honey doesn't have all of the nutrients that yeast needs. So I'm just using a little bit just to give it a little bit of oomph. Why am I doing this series? Well, different honeys do different things with meads. So I want to see what the flavor contrasts will be if I use, Costco's honey, which I have done a traditional before. I've actually done two traditionals with Costco's honey, and versus, say, for example, today's Blackberry honey, or later down the line, I have meadow foam or alfalfa or even buckwheat. I want to taste the differences between the two and how they all react. So, how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to keep the same formula of 2.5 pounds of honey, whichever honey that may be, and then I will use 2 grams of ferment O, which is the yeast nutrient, and then I will use half a packet of S33 yeast. I'm choosing this particular yeast because it is a nice neutral yeast and it won't get in the way of the flavors of the honey itself. So I'm very excited to see what the honeys will bring. And then finally, I'm going to be filling the fermenters up to 1 gallon so that I have 1 gallon of mead made at the end of the day. So what honey am I using today? Today, because it was on sale and I've been planning this for a little while now, I have Oregon's Hummingbird Blackberry honey. As you can tell, we're a fan of blackberries in this house. So we'll see how honey that has been gathered, words are hard sometimes. When it comes to different types of honey, it is based off of what the bees have been pollinating. So for example, with this blackberry, that means that they have been pollinating and using the, what's the word I'm looking for? Pollinating. They have been pollinating and using that to make the honey, specifically just blackberries. There's blueberry honey. There's so many different types of honey out there. There's general wildflower honey, and they all have different tastes. So today is blackberry. So first thing is first, we're going to measure out the honey. Now, here we go. According to the label, this is 1.34 pounds, but I'm going to measure it out anyway. So, here it goes. All right, I'm at 1 pound right now. One and a quarter. Okay, you know what? I call that close to 1.3. So there's number 1 and number 2. Again, we're going to 2.5 pounds. There's 2.5 pounds. So much stickiness. Now you can see I have about 1 pound and then some honey left. I'm using that in case I need to back sweeten. It's always if I need to back sweeten. So it's generally good practice to back sweeten with the same honey that you fermented with, or not necessarily, because you can ferment with, say, a wild honey and back sweeten with a blackberry honey so that you can get a more pronounced blackberry flavor. Now, in my case, I am fermenting with blackberry honey, and I plan to back sweeten if necessary with blackberry. So all the blackberry tastes. So there's that. I have 1 gallon of water. And I'm just gonna fill this up to about halfway so that I can stir. It's gonna take a bit of stirring to get this into a solution, so bear with me. And now it's time for the spattle. It's a spoon, it's a paddle, it's a spattle. And we're just gonna stir. Okay. So, messing with things, let's stir. So, I'm not going to be gentle while stirring because we need to oxygenate, bring oxygen into the solution. Why do we need that? Well, when yeast start, they are in what is called the lag phase or budding phase. And that is when they just are reproducing so that to build a colony. During that phase, they need oxygen, just like the majority of living things. I'm not going to say every living thing because there's things down in the Mariana Trench that are questionable whether they need oxygen. But most living things, the vast majority, need oxygen in some form or fashion. And yeast are living things, even if it looks like a dried powder. That is well mixed, and into the fermenter it goes. Now I see a little bit of honey is still stuck in here, so I'm just going to use a bit more water. Now, why am I not dumping the entire gallon in? Because I'm not going to be using the whole gallon. That will mess with my readings and that which we understand about sugar content. For within a gallon of must, which is the combination of the water and the yeast and the honey, for every 1 gallon, there are 0.046 points of gravity in a pound of sugar. And if I mess with the amount of water in that, then it's not the same number. So I'm trying to conform for the first time. Not really the first time, but it takes me some time to conform on occasion. So, all right. That is all that honey. And it goes. So now I do have a 1 gallon mark. I love my Brew Demon conical fermenter, but when I was trying to read what is the gradations on it, it's nearly impossible. So I had to add some permanent marker marks. So, but the 1 gallon mark is not too far from the top of the rim of its base. So I will fill up to there. There we go. There. Now, as you can see, I have about 1 quart of water left. That would have messed with things. 2.5 pounds of honey does take up about a quart of volume. All right, so next I have my yeast and my yeast nutrient. I use Fermate O for the organic portion of it, and so that there are no there's no ammonia involved. I'm not a fan of the ammonia in a lot of products. I just want it to be organic and ready to go. So yeast nutrient and yeast. Oh, I need to take a reading before I actually go in. Got to take that first reading so that we know where we're starting. All right, 21.4 Brix. 21.4 Brix puts it at a gravity reading of 1.089, which will then have a potential alcohol content of 11.7%, which is great. I don't want it too boozy because I don't want the alcohol to take over the majority of the flavor. I want the honey to come through so I can get a better understanding of how the honey itself tastes. So there's that. I also need to take a pH reading. Let me go get my pH meter. All right, this is my pH meter. Hopefully I will get a fairly quick reading. I am reading a solid 3.6 pH. So that is exactly where I want it to be. It'll keep botulism away because that's always a problem if the pH is above 5. So with the pH being at 3.5, great. If it gets below 2, that's when the yeast would die. We don't want that. So pH reading of 3.6. And the gravity reading of 1.089. Need to actually put the yeast and the nutrient in. So sprinkle on in. All right, so that is now done. The yeast will flocculate and disintegrate and get into the solution on its own. Now we wait. I'm not sure, I've never used this yeast before, so I am curious as to how it goes. Again, I'm using it specifically because it has a neutral flavor and it won't get in the way of the flavor of the honey. and it's a good standardized yeast that just is used for plain beer as well as 33 is. So it's used for basic ales and hefeweizens, nothing too crazy. So there's that. I'm going to put the lid on and an airlock, and we'll see you when it's time to rack. See you next time.